I'm sitting on a balcony in Savannah right now, eating shrimp and grits I didn't have to feel guilty about buying. My dad doesn't know this address. My stepbrother doesn't know this city. And for the first time in years, I can actually breathe. If you're sick of being treated like the family rescue fund nobody ever thanks, hit subscribe, but only if you've ever finally said enough. My name is Jolene. I'm 32, work as a nurse practitioner, and up until 4 months ago, I was the human band-aid my family slapped over every wound they created, most of them self-inflicted, almost all of them caused by my stepbrother, Weston. But I need to take you back because this whole disaster didn't start at one dinner. It started at a funeral. My mom died when I was 11, ovarian cancer, fast and vicious. One morning, she was braiding my hair before school, humming Fleetwood Mac, smelling like the vanilla lotion she kept on her nightstand. 8 months later, I was standing at her grave in a dress she'd picked out for my 12th birthday, a birthday she never got to see. She left behind a $200,000 life insurance policy. Not a fortune, but real money, college money, fresh start money. My dad, Craig, was the beneficiary, and Mom made him promise, sitting upright in a hospital bed, tubes in her arms, my Aunt Ruthie standing right there as witness, that every last cent would go toward my future. Hold on to that promise. It becomes the hinge everything swings on. Dad crumbled after the funeral. I don't hold that against him. Grief is grief. For over a year, he was barely human, forgot groceries, stopped cleaning, spent entire evenings sitting in the dark. So I became the adult at 12 years old, taught myself basic cooking, did laundry, packed my own lunches, and walked to school alone because nobody else was going to do it. Then came Diane. She was sweet at first, showed up with foil-wrapped casseroles and called me brave and so mature. She had a son, Weston, 3 years older than me. They dated, moved in together, got married within 2 years. And from the second Weston crossed our threshold, the entire household shifted to revolve around him, like he was the dang son. Weston was trouble dipped in charisma, loud where I was quiet, reckless where I was careful. He could charm any adult in the room while I watched him steal cash from Dad's wallet and lie about it with a grin so convincing it should have come with a warning label. Diane handled him like hand-blown glass, fragile, priceless, always one wrong move from shattering while everyone else swept up the mess. His moods became the household thermostat. His crises became 5-alarm emergencies. I made honor roll every single semester, never once went on the fridge. Weston got caught shoplifting, full family intervention with a therapist at $175 an hour. I won a county science fair. Dad said, "Nice work, kiddo," eyes glued to his phone. Weston put his fist through a bedroom wall during a tantrum. They remodeled his entire room so he could have a fresh start. That pattern set the template for the next 2 decades of my life, and I didn't even realize it was happening. Now, Mom's money. At 18, I sat Dad down and asked about the life insurance. He couldn't look at me, rubbed the back of his neck, stared at the salt shaker like it owed him answers. There were some expenses, he said. What that actually meant, Weston got arrested at 16 for distributing pills at school. Not possession, dealing. Diane had a complete meltdown. They hired a top-tier criminal defense lawyer, $32,000. Then came the diversion program, the counseling, the restitution payments after he destroyed a teacher's car during what Diane lovingly called an emotional episode. At 17, another arrest. Different substance, same nightmare. Second lawyer, more programs, more cash bleeding out of an account with my name on it spiritually, if not legally. Roughly $85,000 of my dead mother's life insurance money was spent cleaning up Weston's disasters before I ever saw a penny. I sat at that table, 18, acceptance letter trembling in my hand, and felt something inside me fracture. Not shatter, fracture, like a windshield catching a rock on the highway at 70 miles an hour. Still holding together, still technically functional, but cracked in a way that never fully heals no matter how many times you tell yourself it's fine. "There's about 90 left," Dad said, talking fast like speed could outrun my reaction. "That covers most of your schooling." Most, because 25 more had quietly bled into Diane's car lease and a bathroom renovation I sure as hell never asked for. I took the 90, went to nursing school, worked graveyard shifts at a diner to cover the gap, and graduated with $38,000 in student loans that would not have existed if a dying woman's wish had been honored. Did I confront anyone? Scream? Throw things? No, because I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the good daughter who handled everything without making a fuss, and they needed me to stay exactly that way. Landed my first real nursing job at 22. Hospital about 40 minutes from Dad's place, close enough for duty visits, far enough to breathe. That's what I told myself anyway. The phone calls started almost immediately. First one, 2 a.m. Weston got a DUI, needed bail. Dad's voice strained to cracking. "Diane's a wreck, Jolene. We're short. Just this once." $2,500, gone before my second car payment was due. Family helps family. That poisonous little phrase they shove down your throat like medicine that's actually killing you slowly. 4 months later, Weston got fired for showing up impaired, needed rent money or he'd be out on the street. $1,200. Then he borrowed my car for a couple weeks. Kept it 3 months, returned it with a busted mirror, fast food wrappers stuffed in every pocket, 9,000 extra miles, gas tank bone dry. Classic Weston. By 25, I was trapped in a cycle I couldn't even name as abuse. Work 12-hour shifts, collapse at home, phone rings, Weston crisis, wire money, swallow the fury like shards of glass, repeat until you're too numb to feel the cuts anymore. The lowlight reel. Age 23, second DUI, lawyer and fines, $8,000. Dad promised to make it right, got me a $50 necklace from a mall kiosk at Christmas. Age 25, Weston needed first and last on an apartment, $1,900, swore on his daughter Bryn's life he'd pay me back. 6 paychecks came and went, never saw a cent. Age 26, his girlfriend Kelsey got pregnant. Baby shower, hospital bills, crib, stroller, all on my card. "Jolene, you're the best sister ever." Sister, but only when the credit card came out. Age 28, Weston and Kelsey split. Can't afford rent solo. Dad dropped the nuclear guilt bomb. He's got a baby now. Little Bryn needs a stable roof. 5 months of his rent, $5,800. All while I lived in a studio with a shower that ran either lava or ice water. I clipped coupons, ate the same meal-prepped chicken and rice every week, didn't take vacations, barely dated. Impossible to build a life when you're hemorrhaging money to prop up someone else's. I started keeping a spreadsheet at 23, right after the second DUI drained me so bad I ate peanut butter from the jar for 2 weeks. Bail and legal fees, $14,000. Rent bailouts, $13,000. Car disasters, $6,000. Baby costs, $5,000. Random emergencies, $8,000. Mom's life insurance redirected to Weston before I was old enough to fight, $110,000. Total damage of being this family's favorite doormat, over $156,000. And I was still driving a Hyundai with a check engine light so permanent I'd named it Gerald. Gerald and I were tight. But despite all of it, slowly, painfully, I was building something. Last year, I bought a house. Nothing fancy, a 2-bedroom cottage with a porch swing that creaked. Closed on it, stood in the empty kitchen, and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Not grief tears, freedom tears, the kind that feel like surfacing after being held underwater for years. Dad and Diane came to the housewarming, spent the entire visit mentioning how Weston couldn't find anything affordable. Weston himself didn't even show up. He was at some bar doing trivia night, didn't text a congrats, nothing. And that's exactly where things stood when everything finally detonated. 4 months ago, at a Thanksgiving dinner I should have known was a trap from the second I walked through the door. The turkey was golden brown. The mashed potatoes were whipped just right. Diane had even set out the fancy china, the stuff that only came out when she was either impressing company or buttering somebody up for a request. Guess which one this was. I walked in carrying a pecan pie I'd spent 2 hours baking from scratch, not because I needed to prove anything, but because Thanksgiving was the one holiday that still felt like it belonged to me and my mom. She used to make pecan pie every year, real butter crust, dark corn syrup, the whole nine. Baking it was my way of keeping her hands in the kitchen, even though she'd been gone 21 years. Should have turned around the second I noticed the seating arrangement. Dad at the head, Diane to his right, Weston and his new girlfriend Marcy directly across from where I'd be sitting. Bryn, Weston's 5-year-old daughter from Kelsey, was playing on the floor with a doll missing one arm, and there was my chair, directly in the center of the firing line.
ambush position. Weston looked rough. Not the charismatic disaster I was used to. This was something flatter. Darker circles under his eyes, skinnier than last time. Marcy sat beside him with the tight-jawed expression of a woman who'd recently discovered exactly what she'd signed up for and was trying real hard not to bolt. "Hey, Joe," Weston said, without standing up. "Hey." I set the pie on the counter. Nobody complimented it. Nobody even looked at it. We ate. Small talk floated around the table like fog. Weather, football scores, Bryn's kindergarten teacher. Normal enough to lull you into thinking everything was fine, but I'd been through enough of these performances to recognize the pre-show warm-up. It came between the turkey and dessert. Dad set down his fork the way a judge sets down a gavel. "So," he said, looking at Diane first, like he needed permission to detonate the bomb. She gave a tiny nod. "We need to discuss something as a family." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. That's the tone that had cost me $156,000 over the past decade. "What now?" I asked. Didn't even try to hide the exhaustion in my voice. "Weston lost his apartment," Diane said quickly, like ripping off a bandage makes the wound hurt less. I looked at Weston. He was staring at his cranberry sauce like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Evicted?" I asked. "It was a misunderstanding with the landlord," Marcy jumped in. "A misunderstanding," I repeated. "They didn't give us enough notice about the rent increase," Weston muttered. "How much was it?" $50 more a month. $50. Evicted because of $50 extra a month. I wanted to laugh, wanted to scream. Did neither. Just sat there feeling that old familiar fracture in my chest spiderweb a little wider. "And," I said, because there was always an and. Dad cleared his throat. "He needs a place to stay while he gets back on his feet. Your house has that second bedroom. It's just sitting empty." There it was. Not a question, not even a real request. An assumption wrapped in a suggestion disguised as a statement of fact. My spare bedroom was just sitting empty, like I owed the world a reason for having space that belonged to me. "No," I said. The word landed on that table like a brick through a window. Diane blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no. Weston's not moving into my house. Dad leaned forward. "Jolene, he's got Bryn. You want your niece sleeping in a car?" "She's not my niece. She's my stepbrother's daughter, and she won't be sleeping in a car because you have a house with 3 bedrooms. He can stay here." Diane's face flushed crimson. "We don't have the space. You have a guest room and a finished basement. The basement has mold. Then fix the mold. That's a you problem, not a me problem." Weston finally looked up. "Wow, real nice, Joe. What's not nice is expecting me to absorb your problems for the 15th time because you can't manage $50 extra a month. That's unfair," Marcy said, defensive despite knowing me for approximately 45 minutes total. "Unfair?" I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, opened the spreadsheet, the one I'd been building for 9 years, the one I never planned to show anyone because part of me always hoped I was exaggerating. I wasn't. "What's that?" Dad asked. "This is every dollar I've given, loaned, or lost to this family since I was 22. I turned the screen toward them. "Want me to read it?" Nobody answered, so I did anyway. DUI number 1, bail and fines, $2,500. DUI number 2, lawyer and court costs, $8,000. 3 separate rent bailouts, $13,000 total. Car repairs after Weston trashed my vehicle, $6,000. Baby expenses for Bryn, $5,000. Random emergencies, including that time he supposedly needed oral surgery, but actually owed a bookie. Don't think I didn't figure that one out, $8,000. Weston's jaw clenched. "You're making stuff up." I have receipts for every single line item. Venmo records, bank statements, screenshots of every text where Dad said, "just this once," or "family helps family." Want to see those too? "This is incredibly hurtful," Diane whispered, touching her chest like I'd physically wounded her. "Know what else is hurtful? My mother left $200,000 for my future. $85,000 of it went to Weston's lawyers before I graduated high school. That was my mom's money, my dead mother's money, and nobody, not once, ever apologized for that." The silence that followed was so thick you could have choked on it. Dad's face went gray. Actually gray, like the blood drained straight down through his body and pooled in his shoes.
We had no choice. Weston was a minor. He needed consequences. He got a safety net made of my inheritance instead. I was a kid, Weston said, voice rising. You're gonna hold stuff against me from when I was 16? You were 16 when it started. You were 30 last month and you're still doing the exact same thing. The only difference is you switched from pills to poor decisions. Diane stood up. I will not sit here and listen to my son be attacked. Then leave. It's not my house. Jolene, Dad's voice went deep, the authority voice, the one that used to make me shrink at 13. You will not disrespect Diane at her own table. I stood up too. You're right, I won't, because I'm leaving, and while I'm at it, I'm selling my house. Dead silence. Even Bryn stopped playing with her one-armed doll and looked up. You're what? Dad stammered. Selling the house, moving, somewhere far enough that nobody can just drop by with another crisis and a guilt trip. You can't do that, Diane said, looking at my dad like he could physically stop me. Watch me. Jolene, you're being dramatic, Dad said, standing now too. The whole table was standing, like some kind of dysfunctional family standoff at the world's worst Thanksgiving. No, Dad, dramatic is spending 85 grand of a dead woman's insurance money on a kid who wasn't even hers. Dramatic is calling your daughter at 2 a.m. for bail money while she's working a 12-hour ICU shift. Dramatic is showing up to Thanksgiving dinner with a pre-planned ambush to move your stepson into my house, like I don't get a say in my own life. We're your family, Diane shouted. Family doesn't steal from an 11-year-old girl's dead mother. The words came out louder than I intended. They hit Diane like a slap. She sat back down hard. Dad looked like I'd punched him in the stomach. Weston stood there, mouth opening and closing, no words coming out. First time in his life he didn't have a smooth line ready. I'm done, I said quietly, grabbed my coat off the back of the chair, left the pecan pie on the counter. Mom's recipe. They didn't deserve it, but I couldn't carry it out without crying, and I refused to give them that. I walked to my car, got in, sat there, hands on the steering wheel, waiting for it, the tidal wave of guilt that always crashed over me after every confrontation, every boundary I tried to set, every time I dared to prioritize myself over the bottomless pit of Weston's needs. It didn't come. Instead, something else flooded through me, something warm and terrifying and brand new. Relief. Not the temporary kind you get when a crisis passes, the deep kind, the kind that settles into your bones and whispers, you should have done this years ago. My phone exploded before I hit the highway. Dad, get back inside, we're not finished. Diane, how dare you embarrass Weston like that in front of Bryn? Weston, real classy, Joe. Hope you feel good about yourself. Marcy, a woman I'd met 90 minutes ago, texted from Weston's phone. Family is everything. You'll regret this. I turned on Do Not Disturb, merged onto the freeway, drove home with the windows down and Fleetwood Mac playing loud enough to drown out every voice in my head that sounded like theirs. When I walked through my front door, I stood in the kitchen, my kitchen, the one I'd cried happy tears in, and made a decision that would have terrified me 6 months ago, but now felt inevitable. I opened my laptop, Googled how to sell a house fast, then best cities for nurse practitioners, low cost of living, then how to change your phone number. By midnight, I had a plan. By Monday morning, I had a realtor named Deborah who wore turquoise jewelry and said, "Honey, I've helped more people run from bad families than you'd believe. Let's get you free." I liked Deborah immediately.
Deborah listed the house on Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, my dad was standing on my porch at 7:15 a.m. before I'd even finished my first cup of coffee. I saw him through the blinds. He was wearing his work jacket, keys still in hand, truck idling in the driveway with the headlights cutting through the November fog like he'd driven straight over without even thinking about it. Part of me wanted to open the door. That's the part they built, the obedient daughter module they'd been programming since I was 12. The one that flinched at disappointment and crumbled under guilt and said okay when every cell in my body screamed no. I didn't open the door. He knocked 3 times, then 4, then pounded with the flat of his palm. "Jolene, I know you're home. Your car's right there." I sipped my coffee, stood barefoot in my kitchen, watched his shadow shift across the welcome mat I'd bought at Target 2 months ago, the one that said "Home Sweet Home" in cursive letters that suddenly felt ironic as hell. "Joe, please, we need to talk about this like adults."
Adults, that was rich. Adults don't ambush their daughters at Thanksgiving. Adults don't spend a dead woman's life insurance on someone else's kid. Adults don't show up at dawn expecting the person they've been bleeding dry for a decade to just open the door and roll over one more time. He lasted 22 minutes. I know because I timed it. Not out of spite, out of curiosity. 22 minutes of knocking, pleading, pacing, and one attempt to peek through the kitchen window that I shut down by closing the curtains so hard the rod almost came down. When he finally left, I watched his truck pull away. Felt a pinch in my chest. Not guilt, just grief. Grief for the father he could have been if he hadn't married Diane. Grief for the girl I was at 11 who thought her daddy would keep his promises. I let myself feel it for exactly 90 seconds. Then I called Deborah. "Your father called my office this morning," she said, no preamble. Of course he did. Said there was a family emergency and the house shouldn't be listed. Asked me to take it down. What'd you tell him? I told him my client is a grown woman, and unless she tells me otherwise, the sign stays up and the showings go forward. She paused. Also told him I charge extra for harassment. He hung up real quick after that. I loved Deborah. First showing happened Thursday afternoon, second one Saturday morning. By Sunday night, 2 offers landed, both above asking price because apparently my little cottage with the creaky porch swing was exactly what the market wanted. I accepted the higher one, 30-day close. Clean and fast, like ripping off a bandage I should have torn off years ago. I texted my best friend, Naomi. She lived in Charlotte, worked in hospital administration, and was the only person in my life who'd been saying, "Girl, stop giving them money," since we were 23. Me. House sold. Closing in 30 days. Naomi. Shut up. You actually did it? Me. Signed the paperwork an hour ago. Naomi. Where are you going? Me. Savannah. Already got 3 interviews lined up at clinics down there. Naomi. I'm screaming. I'm literally screaming right now. My husband thinks something's wrong. Me. Tell Marcus I said hi. Naomi. He says, and I quote, "Tell Jolene it's about dang time." Me. LOL. Naomi. You need help moving? I will drive 8 hours for this moment. Me. You just want to watch the fallout. Naomi. Obviously, but also I love you and I'm proud of you and you deserve this so hard it makes my teeth hurt. I smiled at my phone, a real smile, not the polite, stretched kind I'd been wearing to family events for years, the kind that starts behind your sternum and works its way up. 9 days before closing, Diane showed up. Not alone, she brought Bryn. I saw them coming up the walkway, Diane in her concerned stepmother outfit, cardigan and all, holding Bryn's hand. Bryn was wearing a shirt that said, "I love my Auntie Jo," in sparkly iron-on letters I guarantee did not exist 48 hours ago. This was a tactical strike, and they dressed a 5-year-old in the uniform. I opened the door because Bryn was innocent in all of this. The kid didn't choose her father, didn't choose any of this. Auntie Jo. Bryn ran forward and wrapped her arms around my knees. I crouched down and hugged her back, breathing in her strawberry shampoo smell, feeling my heart crack in a place I'd been trying real hard to protect. "Hey, sweet pea, how's kindergarten?" "Good, I can write my whole name now. Want to see?" "Maybe in a minute. Can you go sit on the porch swing for me? It's the squeaky one. You'll love it." She bounced off. I stood up, looked at Diane. I said, "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't use that child as a weapon. Whatever you came here to say it to me like a grown woman. Don't hide behind a 5-year-old in a custom t-shirt." Her composure flickered, just for a second. Then the mask slid back on. "I'm not hiding behind anyone. Bryn misses you. Bryn has seen me 4 times in her entire life. Bryn misses the idea of me because you coached her. You're cruel. I'm accurate. Your father is devastated. He barely sleeps. He sits in that recliner staring at the wall. Sounds like he should talk to a therapist. He doesn't need a therapist. He needs his daughter. He had his daughter for 21 years. He had me, and he spent every single one of those years choosing Weston over me. So, no, he doesn't need his daughter. He needs his ATM back." Diane stepped closer.
voice dropping, low and sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Your mother would be ashamed of you." The air left my lungs. Actually, physically left, like she'd reached into my chest and squeezed. My mother, my dead mother who left money specifically for me, whose dying wish was ignored so Diane's son could dodge felony charges. And this woman who married my grieving father and funneled my inheritance into her kid's legal defense, had the audacity to invoke her name? I took one breath, then another. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out steady as stone. "My mother would be ashamed of what you people did with her money. Now get off my porch before I call the police." Diane's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. "Bryn, sweetie," I called, keeping my eyes locked on Diane. "Your grandma's leaving. Give me a hug goodbye." Bryn ran over, squeezed my legs. "Bye, Auntie Jo. Will you come to my birthday?" "We'll see, baby." They left. I closed the door, leaned against it, slid all the way down to the floor and sat there on the cold tile, hugging my knees, trembling, not from guilt, but from rage so pure it felt almost holy. She invoked my mother, used my dead mother as a manipulation tool. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes, letting the fury burn through me like a fever. Then I stood up, washed my face, and packed another box. Closing day came on a Monday. Signed everything at Deborah's office. She handed me a little succulent plant in a terracotta pot as a closing gift. "For the new place," she said, "whatever it looks like. Thank you for everything. Honey, you didn't need me. You just needed permission from yourself." Naomi drove down that weekend, 8 hours in a rented SUV, with road trip snacks and a playlist she'd titled Jolene's Great Escape, heavy on Dolly Parton because she thought she was hilarious. We loaded the moving truck together. Well, she loaded while I pointed and ate gas station donuts and pretended to supervise. "Your family know you're gone tomorrow?" she asked, taping up a box labeled "Bathroom, Don't Drop." "Nope." "Savage," she grinned. "I've been waiting years for this version of you." "What version?" "The version that stops apologizing for existing." We finished by dark, sat on the porch swing one last time, the creaky one Bryn had loved for 11 minutes, drank cheap wine from coffee mugs because I'd already packed the glasses. "You scared?" I thought about it, really sat with the question. "No," I said. "I'm angry I didn't do this sooner." That's grief talking. Maybe, but it's also truth. She raised her mug. To Savannah. I clinked mine against hers. To not being the family ATM anymore. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I glanced at it. Dad, calling from someone else's line because I'd blocked his. The man was resourceful when he wanted something. Funny how that energy never showed up when I needed him. I declined the call, turned off my phone, looked at the empty house through the window, the house I'd cried in, bled for, and was now leaving behind like a skin I'd outgrown. Tomorrow I'd drive south, start fresh, build a life where my value wasn't measured by how much I could sacrifice. But tonight, I sat on a creaky porch swing with my best friend, drinking dollar wine from a chipped mug, and felt something I hadn't felt since I was 11 years old, standing in a kitchen that smelled like vanilla while my mother hummed Fleetwood Mac. Safe.
The drive to Savannah took 6 hours and 43 minutes. I know because I counted every single one of them, not out of anxiety, but out of something closer to ceremony. Like each mile was a stitch being removed from a wound I'd been carrying so long I forgot it was there. Naomi followed in her SUV for the first 2 hours before splitting off toward Charlotte. We hugged at a gas station somewhere outside of Columbia. She held on tight, tighter than normal, and whispered, "Don't you dare go back." "I won't. Promise me." "I promise." She pulled away, eyes wet, pointing at me with the intensity of a woman who'd watched me get bled dry for a decade and had been powerless to stop it. "You call me every week, every single week, or I'm driving to Savannah and kicking your door down. Deal." She drove north, I drove south, and somewhere around the Georgia border, I rolled the windows down, cranked Fleetwood Mac so loud the rearview mirror vibrated, and screamed. Not a sad scream, not a scared scream, a primal, guttural, 10 years in the making scream that came from somewhere beneath my ribcage and tore through me like lightning splitting a dead tree. I screamed until my throat burned. Then I laughed. Then I cried. Then I laughed again. Gerald, my check engine light, flickered the entire way, faithful to the end. My apartment in Savannah was a one-bedroom on the second floor of a converted Victorian, hardwood floors that creaked in all the right places, a kitchen with actual counter space, a balcony overlooking a street lined with live oaks dripping Spanish moss like something out of a painting I couldn't afford but was suddenly living inside of. I stood in the empty living room that first night, boxes stacked around me like cardboard walls, and waited for the panic, the regret, the guilt tsunami that had followed every boundary I'd ever tried to set. Nothing came, just quiet. The good kind, the kind that doesn't need filling. First week, unpacked. Second week, started my new job at a family practice clinic 20 minutes from my apartment. Third week, found a coffee shop called Wren's, where the barista remembered my order after 2 visits, and the shrimp and grits were so good, I almost called my mother's ghost just to tell her about them. By month 2, I had something I hadn't experienced since childhood, a routine that belonged entirely to me. Wake up, coffee on the balcony, work, come home, cook dinner, actual dinner, not survival meals scraped together from whatever was cheapest at the grocery store. Read, sleep, repeat. No 2 a.m. phone calls about bail money, no guilt-soaked texts about Weston's latest catastrophe, no knocks on the door from people who only showed up when they needed something. Just life. Plain, ordinary, beautiful life. But the family wasn't done with me. They're never done with you. That's the thing about people who've been feeding off you for years. They don't just accept the loss of their food source. They hunt. Month 2. LinkedIn message from Weston. Not a text, not a call. LinkedIn. Like we were former colleagues reconnecting at a virtual mixer. Hey Joe, hope you're doing well wherever you ended up. No hard feelings. Would love to catch up sometime. No hard feelings. $156,000 of hard feelings. But sure, no hard feelings. I archived it without responding. 3 weeks later, Diane created a second Facebook account, Diane Morrison Craig, with a profile picture of her and Bryn at what looked like a pumpkin patch, and sent me a friend request with a message attached. Jolene's, this has gone on long enough. Christmas is coming. Your father hasn't smiled since you left. Bryn drew you a picture at school. Please come home. I'll make your mother's pecan pie recipe. She couldn't have my mother's pecan pie recipe. She had a version she'd found on Pinterest 3 years ago and passed off as close enough. The audacity of this woman was genuinely breathtaking. I declined the request, blocked the account, went to Wren's and ordered a lavender latte that cost $6 and tasted like peace of mind. Christmas came. I spent it alone, by choice. Cooked a small ham, watched 3 movies, FaceTimed Naomi and her husband who wore matching ugly sweaters and sang Jingle Bells off-key until I laughed so hard I snorted wine through my nose. You good? Naomi asked after Marcus went to refill his eggnog. Really good. Not lonely? There's a difference between lonely and alone. I've been lonely at a table full of family. This is just alone, and alone is fine. She studied me through the phone screen. Yeah, she said softly, you really are fine, aren't you? For the first time in 20 years? Yeah, I really am. New Year's Eve. Email from Weston. Subject line, just read this please. Against every instinct screaming, don't, I opened it. Joe, I know you don't want to hear from me. I get it. I'm writing because I think you should know what's happening. Not to guilt you, just because you deserve the truth. I lost another job. Before you roll your eyes, I know, but I'm trying. I got hired at a distribution center. It's physical work. I come home wrecked every night. Bryn asks about you. She still has that shirt Diane made. Wears it to bed sometimes. I don't know what to say when she asks where you went. Marcy left me. Said she couldn't handle the instability. Can't blame her. I'm back at Dad and Diane's, sleeping in the basement. Yes, the one with the mold. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know that things are hard and I'm trying to figure them out without you. It sucks, but I'm doing it. I hope Savannah is everything you needed it to be. Weston. I read it twice, sat with it, felt something. Not guilt, not satisfaction, something more complicated. Like watching a house burn that you used to live in. You don't want it to burn, but you also know you can't go back inside. I didn't respond. Month 4. Got a call from an unknown number on a Saturday morning.
I'd learned my lesson about answering those, but something made me pick up. Instinct, maybe. Or stupidity. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Jolene, Dad's voice, rougher than I remembered. Older. How'd you get this number? Called your old clinic, told them it was a medical emergency. That's a HIPAA violation. I didn't ask for medical records, just said I needed to reach my daughter. What do you want, Dad? Silence. Long enough that I checked if the call dropped. I want to apologize. I almost dropped my coffee. Your mother's money, he continued, voice cracking like a branch in a storm. I should have protected it. I should have protected you. She was scared. Weston was facing real time and I panicked, but that doesn't excuse it. Nothing excuses it. I sat on my balcony, watched a couple walk their dog beneath the oaks. Normal people living normal lives, untouched by this specific dysfunction. You made her a promise, I said quietly. She was dying, she could barely breathe, and she looked at you and said, take care of Jolene, and you said yes, and then you didn't.
He was crying. I could hear it. The thick, wet, suffocated kind of crying that men his age try to hide because they were raised to believe tears are weakness. I know. Do you know what it's like to be 11 years old and lose your mother and then find out the one thing she left you was given to someone else? Do you have any idea what that does to a person? No. His voice broke completely. I don't, and I'm so sorry, Jolene. I'm so goddamn sorry. I let the silence stretch, let him sit in it. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. He needed to feel the weight, the full, crushing, no-escape weight of what he'd done. I appreciate you saying that, I said finally. Can I see you? Drive down? Take you to lunch? Nothing else, just lunch. Not yet. But someday? Maybe someday. But not because you need me to, Dad, because I want to. And right now, I don't want to. He was quiet for a long time. Okay, he whispered. Okay. I hung up, sat there watching the moss sway in the breeze, didn't cry, didn't need to. Some things settle into you quiet, like sediment after a flood. The water clears eventually. You just have to let it. 5 months into Savannah, I met someone. His name was Theo, pediatric physical therapist. Warm hands, crooked smile, the kind of laugh that made strangers in restaurants turn around and grin without knowing why. We met at Wren's. He ordered the same lavender latte I did, and the barista mixed up our cups. We spent 10 minutes pretending to argue about whose was whose before he said, just let me buy you another one and we'll call it even. 3 dates later, I told him everything. The money, the family, the spreadsheet, the escape. He listened without interrupting, which alone was worth more than any dollar amount I could name. And when he finished, he said 5 words that hit me harder than any apology ever could. You deserved so much better. Not, but they're your family. Not, maybe give them another chance. Not, that's rough, but have you considered their perspective? Just, you deserved better. Full stop. Period. End of sentence. I stared at him across that coffee shop table with my $6 latte going cold and thought, so this is what it feels like when someone sees you as a person instead of a resource. It feels like everything. 7 months in, Naomi visited for a long weekend. We ate our body weight in low country boil, walked the riverfront until our feet ached, and stayed up past midnight talking on my balcony while cicadas screamed in the oaks like tiny drunk opera singers. You ever regret it? She asked. Same question everyone eventually asks. Going nuclear on them? I thought about it, really turned it over, looked at it from every angle. I regret that it had to happen the way it did. Thanksgiving dinner, screaming about money in front of a 5-year-old, burning everything down in one afternoon. I wish I'd set boundaries earlier, like a decade earlier, so it never reached that point. But I don't regret leaving. I don't regret the silence. I don't regret choosing myself for the first time in my entire adult life. She raised her wine glass, a real glass this time, not a coffee mug, to choosing yourself. I clinked mine against hers, to being a person instead of a bank account. We sat in comfortable quiet after that, watching the lights shimmer on the Savannah River, listening to the city hum its slow southern lullaby. You know what's wild? I said eventually. What? They spent my whole life telling me family helps family, and they were right. Family should help, but help means showing up for each other, It means respect. It means not treating someone's paycheck like a community fund. It means remembering that love and obligation aren't the same thing. Naomi looked at me. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between Colombia and the Georgia border, right around the time I screamed loud enough to scare a trucker. She laughed. I laughed. And somewhere hundreds of miles north, my father sat in a recliner staring at a wall, and Weston slept in a moldy basement with a 5-year-old who wore a sparkly shirt to bed, and Diane scrolled Facebook looking for cracks in my armor she could wedge her fingers into. And me? I sat on a balcony in Savannah, drinking wine that wasn't cheap, eating shrimp and grits I didn't have to justify, building a life that belonged entirely to me for the first time since I was 11 years old and the world cracked in half. My mother left me money. They took it. My mother left me strength. They couldn't touch that. And that was the inheritance that actually mattered.